Good day and welcome to The Pulse. As usual on this show, we keep our fingers on the pulse as we evaluate various government programs. And on this week's show, we're joined by the Minister of National Housing, Honorable Daniel Garwe. Honorable, welcome to The Pulse.
Good afternoon and thank you very much.
Does the National Housing Ministry have any pulse today?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this discussion. Indeed, we have a lot of issues to share with the nation. A lot of progress has been made since 2020, when the National Development Strategy 1 was put into place by His Excellency. The NDS 1 directs us to provide or produce 220,000 housing units by 2025, inclusive of fully serviced stands. I'm happy to announce that by the 31st of March this year, we had delivered 49,150 housing units and 136,850 serviced stands, which aggregate to 186,000 units. So we are ahead of the target given of 220,000 houses by 2025. In fact, I can safely say we are 2 years ahead of schedule, because 186,000 units relate to 86% of the program set. We have some ongoing projects as we speak. We've got a lot of houses throughout the 10 provinces, a lot of stands that are being serviced. The housing delivery program is not a wholly government program alone. It's a combination of those that are being done by government through the ministry, those that are being done through the government agencies like National Building Society and other quasi-government institutions, Urban Development Corporation, and those that are being done by the private sector. We have our private sector very active in housing delivery as we speak. We have developing companies such as Aspire Heights, which is developed in Aspendale. We have got Millennium Heights, we've got Homelux, we've got so many other developers that are involved. But we also have financial institutions that are involved in housing delivery. And our pension funds actually are part of the development team.
You mentioned that you've so far covered 86% of your target and you are 2 years ahead of your target. Would you be in a position to review that target of 225,000 housing units?
We have already started working on that. I was discussing with the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Professor Mtuli, and said I think there is need for us now to revise our targets and have 1 million houses by 2025, which is quite possible. Because we are saying by the end of 2023, we will have gone beyond the 220,000 housing units. So it's quite possible within the 2 years that are left in terms of the NDS 1, we'll be able to deliver a minimum of 1 million houses. And our target is by the time we reach 2030, we don't want to be experiencing any backlogs, be it through local authorities or through the ministry, in terms of housing delivery.
But the national housing backlog to date, where does it stand?
It's heavily reduced now with the deliverables that I'm talking about. We were initially looking at 1 million houses that needed to be delivered by 2030. But as you are aware, the backlog is a moving target. Zimbabweans, be what we are, we want to own more. A person has got 4 or 5 houses and he keeps on wanting to be on the waiting list. So that is the challenge that we are having. And school leavers like our youngsters who have been working for a year or 2, instead of going through a rental process, they want to start by owning. So it's a moving target. But we are saying by the time we reach to 2020, we'll have cleared that backlog to the extent that whoever wants to own will own, whoever wants to rent will rent. These are some of the models that we're working on right now.
Yeah, maybe if you could unpack the different models that you're coming up with.
The first model that we are looking at, which speaks directly to college leavers and youngsters, is the rental model. And we are now speaking to pension funds and financial institutions to invest money into the development of flats, which would be specifically tailored to accommodate school leavers, college leavers, and the youngsters that have just started working and they're starting life.
And young couples as well.
And the young couples as well. So you start from what used to be called a bed sitter, which is a one room and a kitchenette.
Self-contained sort of space.
Yeah. Yes. So you have that for a bachelor or a spinster. Then you gravitate from there, you graduate to a one-bedroom flat. Then you graduate as you grow old, as your family gets bigger and bigger. You move to the next level. So we will have different types of flats, bed sitters, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, until we have 3 bedrooms to accommodate families with children of different sexes.
Okay, but of concern will obviously be the rentals that will be charged. Will they be affordable given our salary scales here in Zimbabwe?
The housing delivery program in the country is premised on 3 pillars. It must be affordable, it must speak to climate change, which is sustainability, it must be modern. So obviously whether it's for purchase purposes or it's for rental, it must be within the affordability realm. And that's what we are looking at. Whether they are rentals, they must be within the reach of the youngsters. Whether it's for pure purchase, it must be within the people that want to purchase. We have now, that takes us to the next level of the models, which is the rent to own or rent to buy model. We are aware that the mortgage systems that we inherited from the colonial masters was focusing on people who were employed by companies that were recognized by financial institutions, where you come with a pay slip and the letter from your employer that you are employed and this is your salary grade. So it excludes SMEs and those that are self-employed.
Yes, informal sector, because we do have quite a significant number of those.
Absolutely. It was excluding those. So we have now said, let's develop a model that is all-encompassing. So the rent to own or rent to buy model is what we are working on. You could be paying $200 per month, $250 per month. That money is going towards procurement of your house. Instead of just paying rentals and at the end of a period you are living, you've been there for 5 years, paying $200 a month. That money is not adding value to your future. So we're saying, so instead of just paying rentals, why don't we develop a model that ensures that those rentals that you are paying will go towards procurement purchase of your house? So that is the second model, the most attractive model to the young generations.
But are financial institutions playing ball, given that they require a number of documents for someone to secure a loan or housing mortgage? But now, given that a lot of our people are in the informal sector and may not have these documents, are our local banks willing to take that risk?
This is the migration we are now pushing to be accepted by the financial institutions, to move away from the standard and colonial mortgage system, which does not apply in our economic world as Zimbabwe, and move to the rental program. And our banks, yes, they are warming up to that. We've open discussions with them. Even the pension funds, they're also warming up to that. They say, look, let's look at our environment and develop products that are good for our product, for our environment. And that's what we're working on.
Now, you also look at, I'm sure there's another model where someone can come in and make a once-off purchase of their property. The high cost of loans and mortgages, the high interest rates, is an issue of concern. As the Ministry of National Housing, how are you addressing that?
Interest rates generally are a cause for concern. And interest rates in terms of the existing mortgage systems are punitive. So by engaging the financial institutions and other key players in the housing delivery program, we want to address the issue of interest rates and the existing, it's a package, the existing mortgage system is not user-friendly in terms when we look at the Zimbabwean environment. So we are saying, look, yes, this is what you have been using. But let's look at our environment. A significant percentage of our population is either an SME or self-employed. So if we follow the format in terms of the existing mortgage systems, they do not qualify. Yet these are people that have got access to money. What is not there is a documented way of employment. The majority of them, particularly those that are in the mining sector, in the gold miners, the small scale miners, they have got access to finance. They don't get that money on a regular basis. But once they do their mining and they go into have their ores processed, they can come up with a lot of money and make once-off payments. So our financial institutions and those that are responsible for providing mortgage systems, they must warm up to that and relax their systems. In any event, the property itself becomes the security. You only do the property transfer when somebody has finished
fully paid.
Yes, so there is a lot of security around that property.
Now, but there are those that may also want to purchase land and build on their own, but the high cost of construction is construction material, and construction itself is quite punitive. What are you doing as government to ensure that people have access to affordable building material, affordable land as well?
The biggest cost driver in housing delivery has been the cost of land. Even those developers that were given state land to develop and were given at intrinsic value, $4.50 per square meter, have been charging commercial rates for the land that they almost received from government for free. So government has now put a stop to that, just a random issuance of land to developers. Government is now has taken that responsibility and provided facilities where government will come with partnership with the developers. Government's contribution is affordable land at intrinsic value. The developer will come with the equipment and the financial muscle that is required, provide the services, the first line services, roads, water, sewer, and electricity. And then because government has provided the land at very affordable rates, the service, the stand becomes affordable to the would-be beneficiaries. Then you'll be able now to construct your house. We'll then have dealt with the significant cost driver in terms of the cost of land. In terms of the cost of building materials, there are so many interventions that are being done through the Ministry of Finance to ensure that people move away from the evil of overpricing or overcharging or profiteering. And I'm sure there are a number of, you've been watching what has been happening in the various sectors where government is now monitoring the pricing regime in various companies and sometimes stopping payments to those companies. It's because of this want to increase prices unnecessarily.
When you talk of overcharging, we'll come back to the issue of land developers that you highlighted, but you highlighted the issue of overpricing, and a lot of tenants out there raise that concern that they are being overcharged in terms of rentals that they are paying to their landlords. Would it be feasible for government to perhaps intervene and control how much rentals can be charged?
Well, we have gone beyond the issue of controls, but we want to say let it be a fair market where people charge fair and reasonable rentals to tenants. And yes, we have a department here that looks at rentals. The rent board is managed through the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities. We try where possible to ensure that the rentals that are being charged out there are fair and reasonable. But we cannot come up and say this is a cast in stone rental for this type of housing. Charge this or no one will come and it's not what we are doing.
So some would then feel that the rent board is not doing much to protect tenants.
Well, we handle, I think, in excess of 20-25 cases on a daily basis of tenants that are coming to complain about quantum increase of rentals by wayward landlords. So the rent board is doing quite a lot in harmonizing those relationships. We are doing quite a lot. We are actually very busy in ensuring that tenants are not overcharged, tenants are not abused, tenants are not ruthlessly dealt with by landlords. If you say fail to pay within a month, you are then given marching orders to leave the house. Those are some of the cases that the rent board is dealing with. So there is a lot of work that the rent board is doing indeed.
Let's come back to the issue of land developers that you highlighted earlier. Some feel that land developers are giving home seekers raw deals because we've seen a number of residential suburbs sprouting without properly serviced or properly being serviced, without all the necessary amenities such as schools, shops. The roads are in a bad state. How are you going to deal with this challenge?
Let me give you by way of a background. In the turn of the millennium, government having realized that there was need to speed up the delivery of housing to ensure that we cut on the backlogs that were sprouting in local authorities and throughout the country. Government invited land developers and said, look, government has got land. You bring the financial resources, the technical expertise and equipment. Let's get into a partnership. We'll give you the land at intrinsic value, like I said earlier on. You go and use your resources and develop these areas and sell the developed stands to would-be beneficiaries at reasonable rates. But what happened is government was so responsible and truthful to the promise. A lot of land was given to developers throughout the country. The developers unfortunately decided to parcel out and service the land to would-be beneficiaries. And also government had said that time, let's focus on a parallel development strategy where you could be building the superstructure at the same time we are providing the first line services, roads, water and sewer. That gave an opportunity to wayward land developers to now start selling and service the land to would-be beneficiaries on the proviso that we will then come and do the roads. And this is what we are now experiencing in terms of the informal settlements that are dotted throughout the country. It was born out of a genuine desire to provide accommodation to people. And land developers were called upon to work on that. And they became greedy because government did not have all the resources to be supervising each and every developer timelessly. They started parceling out and selling and service the land to people. And that's what gave rise to the development of Caledonia, Gimboki, Manicaland, and all these other irregular settlements that we are seeing today.
But we also have regular settlements that are sitting on wetlands, and every rain season you have residents facing challenges of flooding.
Well, if I'm not aware of any irregular settlements that are sitting on wetlands, I'll be very much happy if you could cite some examples so that we can deal with that.
Of course,
obviously also bearing in mind that we now have climate change. Our conditions have changed. It's not surprising to get a rainy season starting in June. So areas where ordinarily wouldn't have been defined as wetlands are now fast being turned into wetlands. But I don't think government regularly planned areas properly and then say this is a wetland, we have now developed it, it's now a settlement. We don't have such.
I could give examples. There's a settlement in Budiriro. There's another suburb, a whole suburb in Gweru, where over the past 3-4 years or rain seasons, we've had residents being evacuated during the rain season to safe houses, and then they return to their...
the settlements that you are talking about are settlements that were developed by the developers that I'm referring to, who then, because you are given a piece of land, what you should have done was to do the master plans and identify on that piece of land areas that are demarcated as wetlands. You don't develop there. you develop on areas that are safe for human settlements. But people just sold land, without due regard to whether it's suitable for human settlements or not. They just sold land because they were greedy. They were just selling land.
So now, what remedial action would government take?
We are now developing new areas which are safe for human settlements, and once those are done, we would remove people that are settled in wetland areas to those safe grounds.
Okay, related to that, government launched the presidential title deeds scheme recently, where a lot of people who are settled who were irregularly settled are now being regularized. Their settlement is now being regularized. Some people may think that this scheme is being used for political gain. What would be your reaction to this?
There is no relationship whatsoever between the government policies in terms of regularizing informal settlements and the political gains that are being imagined by people that are imagining them. There is no relation whatsoever. His Excellency launched the issuance of title deeds in March last year, and this picked up airport as the launch pad. The title deeds were then issued to the first line this year, 3 weeks ago. The policy on regularization was enunciated to deal with the issues of land tenure and land security. We have, if I can take you back to the colonial era, we have got, Zimbabwe was divided into 2 settlements. There was the northern suburbs as a settlement for whites and other related races. Then there was the high density suburbs or locations then where the black majority were then domiciled. These were basically settlement stations for employees. They were never allowed to own anything. And so you Mbare, Highfield, Mfakosi, Makokova, and so on and so forth, were then created to provide accommodation for employees who were working in companies that were nearest to those areas. But these settlements were properly planned with roads, water, so and everything.
And other amenities.
And other amenities. Those employees, regardless, were also being asked to pay rentals to local authorities. So for 40 years, 50 years, and so on and so forth, the people that were living in those houses were paying rentals to local authorities. Come 1980, government pronounced it to say those that have been living in those houses paying rentals now own the houses, and agreements of sale were processed. So the majority of people that you find in Mbare have got an agreement of sale. What is lacking is the title deed to own, and this is one of the phases that we are now going to be going through as directed by His Excellency, that ensure that all those people are provided with the title deeds, because they have already finished paying for the rentals under the rental model that we're talking about.
The rent to buy.
The rent to buy, yes.
Model.
Yes.
But we have settlements such as your Caledonia, your Epworth, that were irregular settlements and now are being regularized.
Yes.
Some would also think that perhaps government is setting precedents where some people will then wantonly invade land and hope that their settlement there will also be regularized, since precedents has already been set.
No, we've got a cut-off point to that effect. Settlements like Caledonia, settlements like Epworth, they have got master plans which were prepared by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works. And the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education was directed through the Department of Geospatial Planning to come and do mapping, which they've already done. The mapping is to determine who is regularly settled and who is not. Those that were issued with the title deeds 3 weeks ago by His Excellency were identified as people that were regularly settled in terms of the master plans that were prepared by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works. So whosoever now wants to think and cash in on that, we have put systems in place to ensure that they will be moved out.
Okay, so you're saying within those settlements there are some people who are irregularly settled and may have to be moved?
Yes. What we are saying is there were some people that moved in, take Caledonia for example. When Caledonia was developed, master plans and layout plans were produced. There were areas that were set aside for social amenities, schools, clinics, shopping centers. And then because of the behavior of an animal called a land baron, who then started selling land to unsuspecting beneficiaries, they ended up selling land that was set aside for social amenities and settled there. The mapping that was done by ZINGSA, the geospatial planners, identified those people that were irregular or illegally settled on social amenities ground. Those have been identified, those will be removed, and they'll be given an opportunity to go and settle elsewhere.
But roughly nationally, what's your target in terms of issuance of title deeds?
Look, this is a massive program. For starters, the first phase, which is settlements that are regularly planned, like Mbare, Highfield, Makokoa, those ones with agreements of sale, they have to be issued with title deeds, and that is now the Department of the Deeds, the Registrar of Deeds under the Minister of Justice and the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs who are responsible for that. We will then come, our focus as Minister of National Housing, we're also part of the interministerial committee that deals with that. Our focus is to ensure that services are provided in irregular settlements where people have built beautiful houses, by the way, and government cannot now come and remove them from those settlements. We now have to provide the services in line with what is existing. That is what we are now working on.
Okay. On that note, I should thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for joining us on The Pulse. That was the Minister of National Housing, Honourable Daniel Garwe, unpacking for us the country's national housing strategy. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's edition of The Pulse. Be sure to join us, same place, same time next week, as we keep our fingers on the pulse. Pleasant viewing.